My name is Maren Ivers, 32 years old. The roast should have been the star. Fat crackling, rosemary breathing into the air, the dining room soft with candlelight. But the sounds I remember are smaller. The tick of the thermostat, my father's chair easing back, my own fork landing wrong and skittering. "Still living off us, huh?" Dad said, loud enough to feel official. Mom laughed the laugh that trimmed the edges off me. Nicole and Brandon traded a sideways look, the kind people practice when they've been invited into a joke. At the far end, Chloe froze with her fork midair, a 6-year-old eyeing a weather pattern she knows will bring rain. I stared at the roast as if it could argue for me. No one touched the dessert. I didn't throw a scene. I never do. I felt the old, familiar burn sweep my face, and then I pushed my chair back. The scrape across the floor was louder than their chuckles. My coat was on the hook by the hall mirror. My house keys hung beside it on a tiny brass hook shaped like a door. I took them down, felt their weight, and thought, stupidly, specifically, who gets to hold the keys in this family? "Excuse me," I said. To no one. To everyone. Someone muttered my name. I closed the door softly, because even fury has its ritual. Outside, December made a point. Cold knifed along my wrists where my sleeves had ridden up. I stood on the steps, breathing steam, and the questions came fast. What are you doing? What will make them stop? And beneath it, something truer. What would it take to not be the punchline anymore? I built my life carefully. Freelance graphic designer, steady clients, invoices squared and filed. The condo in Center City, 2 bedrooms, good light, white walls that make art look braver, should have been my proof that I'd done it, that I stood in the world on my own legs. Market rent could pull $2,800 with eyes closed. That's what the buildings around me were getting with fewer windows and worse plumbing. I didn't list it. I let my parents move in, and Nicole and Brandon and sweet Chloe for $600 a month. I told myself I was doing what families did, sharing warmth, sharing luck. My accountant said I was bleeding. My mother said I was finally useful. My father called it paying it forward, which sounded less like gratitude and more like a tab. Growing up, Nicole glittered. Straight A's that glowed, cheer banners, prom photos where her smile looked sponsored. My strengths were quieter and came stapled to words like practical and reliable. I did their design favors. I babysat Chloe. I paid surprise repair bills when Dad called to say the pipe was urgent, Maren. Those calls always came with a tone, as if I were lucky to be invited to participate in their emergencies. I told myself it was love. Maybe it was also habit. The night after the roast, I couldn't sleep. I drifted through the condo, turning lights off, then on again. The place smelled like lemon oil and a mistake I'd been repeating. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Tara, friendly, careful Tara, works with Nicole at the boutique. We are the kind of acquaintances who nod like we shared a train once. Her name on my screen made something cold slide down my spine. "Hey," her first text said, then nothing for a full minute, like she was giving me time to decline whatever door she was about to open. Another bubble. "This is messy, and I hate being in it, but I think you should see this." A screenshot appeared. Nicole's group chat with 2 friends I recognized from her filtered life. My sister's words blinked up at me, cheerful and cruel. "We've got this in the bag. Center City for $600 while she plays landlord. She'll never raise it. She's too soft to charge family." A cartoon money bag emoji completed the thought with the grace of a slap. I sat down at the kitchen island. The marble felt winter cold through my sleeves. Tara. I only saw it by accident when we were closing. Please don't say it was me. It didn't sit right. I stared at the screenshot until the edges blurred. My father's roast comment, my mother's laugh, sharpened to a point. Soft. Too soft to charge family. I had been feeding a belief, not a need. I had made it easy for them to keep me small. I typed back, "Thank you. I won't involve you." Then I sent the image to myself, to 2 backup emails, to a folder on my desktop labeled Keep. I printed it. I printed the lease too, the one I'd written 2 years ago, which had started as a formality and become a permission slip. I slid both into a manila folder. The flap clicked shut like a quiet decision. Morning brought clarity in a mean way. Coffee hit, and with it, a clean line I could hold. I called a meeting. Tonight, 7, I texted the family group thread. At the condo. We need to discuss the lease. 10 minutes later, Brandon sent a thumbs up I could feel smirking. Nicole replied with a heart, like we were planning a movie night. Mom wrote, "We'll be there." Dad called to say the word lease, the way some people say audit. I spent the day working, logos and color palettes and brands, trying to become versions of themselves. And still, underneath, I heard chairs scrape, keys lift, laughter land. Chloe's face at the table kept flickering in, 2 brown eyes trying to read the adults. I kept answering emails. I kept imagining the manila folder. I kept touching my keys in my pocket like a rosary. At 6:58, I set water and glasses on the living room table. The sofa looked serene and cream, arms curved like a promise. I placed the folder beside the coaster. Neat, ready. The lock turned at 7:02. My mother came in first, jaw set, coat already undone. Dad behind her, chewing the air like it owed him something. Nicole, glossy and radiant in a way only entitlement achieves. Brandon trailing, flipping his baseball cap around like a timer he could control. We sat. No one reached for the water. My mouth felt dry anyway. "I'm raising the rent," I said. My voice surprised me. Level, not shaking. "To 2,800. That's market. If you don't want to pay it, you'll have 30 days to find somewhere else." A beat. Then 3 things at once. Dad's face darkening like a storm map. Nicole's mouth opening in a perfect pink O. Brandon's chair creaking as he leaned forward like a threat might find him there. My mother looked down and fiddled with the chain around her neck. It held her wedding ring and, my stomach dipped, our old house key, the brass worn to a thumbprint shine. "We're family," my father said, each word heavy. "You don't evict family." "I'm not evicting anyone," I said. "You can stay, at market rate." Nicole's voice went high and thin. "You know we can't pay that. You know our situation." "I know mine," I said. "I've subsidized you for years. It ends now." Dad tried the old trick. "We paid for your art classes. We carried you." "You taught me how to work," I said steady. "I'm doing it." Brandon muttered something I didn't catch, something that made Nicole flick her eyes toward him and back. My mother said, finally, quietly, "Think about Chloe." "I am," I said, and felt my chest constrict. "That's why I'm doing this on a timeline. That's why it's orderly." I didn't mention the screenshot. Not yet. I didn't need to borrow their outrage. I slid the typed notice across the table like a bland postcard. "The new rate starts next month," I said. "Or you move. 30 days." Nicole didn't reach for the paper. She stared at me as if I'd spilled on her favorite dress. Dad lifted his hand to point at me, then seemed to think better of it. Brandon's cap spun once, twice, landed forward like a decision had. My mother's thumb pressed the old key flat against her palm. When they left, the door closed on a second of silence so pure I could hear my own pulse. I stood there and listened to myself breathe. Then I took the manila folder from the table, opened it, and slid the signed notice and Tara's screenshot inside. The flap met the cardboard with a soft, final sound. I labeled the spine with a black marker. Keep. Soft doesn't mean easy to break, I thought, looping the K a little darker. Sometimes soft means you hold, and then you stop. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and felt the keys warm in my hand as if they'd made up their mind about me. The morning after that meeting, I woke up to sunlight cutting through the blinds like interrogation lines. My phone was already vibrating, texts stacked on top of each other. "Dad, you don't do this to family." Nicole, "Congratulations on destroying what's left of us." Mom, "Think about Chloe." I made coffee and didn't respond. The kitchen smelled like quiet victory and fear. It was one thing to draw a boundary, another to live inside it. By noon, the comments started trickling in. Not to me directly, but through friends. Nicole had posted on Instagram, "When your own sister turns landlord, you realize greed runs deeper than blood." Underneath were sympathy emojis, cousins chiming in with, "That's awful," and one comment from a family friend, "She's always been self-centered." I scrolled through it all with my thumb, hovering over the screen, the way you might trace the outline of an old wound. I didn't comment. I just took screenshots, every caption, every timestamp, every face that clicked like. Then, late that night, came the text. No name, just a blocked number. "Push this further and your condo won't stay so perfect." I reread it 5 times. The words looked cheap, but the chill that followed wasn't. Brandon's temper had always been quick. He once punched a hole in Nicole's car door over parking tickets. I could imagine him, drunk and righteous, typing this with his thumbs and a beer sweating beside him. I forwarded the message to my email and added it to the folder. Keep. When Tyler called, his voice was steady the way mine wasn't. They're flailing, he said. Don't respond. Keep records. You're doing what's fair. He offered to come over, but I wanted to face it alone. Maybe because I'd spent my whole life avoiding confrontation, and this was my first chance to stand in the middle of it without flinching. 2 days later, Nicole texted, "Light in the hallway keeps flickering. Can you fix it?" No apology, no acknowledgement of the rent notice, just a demand wrapped in domestic politeness. "Sure," I wrote. "I'll stop by this afternoon." When I arrived, the building felt unnervingly quiet. Their mail piled on the entry table. Chloe's pink backpack was slumped near the coat rack, unzipped, a drawing peeking out, a crooked house with everyone's names except mine. I replaced the bulb in under a minute. Easy. But as I turned toward the living room, my breath snagged. A thick black line slashed across the cream sofa, a jagged, deliberate scrawl of permanent marker. It looked like someone had pressed until the tip frayed. The ink soaked through the weave, bleeding into a shape almost like a word, though not enough to name it. My pulse kicked. I crouched, touched the stain. Still tacky. This wasn't Chloe. This was anger pretending to be control. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos from every angle. Timestamp visible on the corner of the screen. The sound of each shutter was too loud, like I was photographing a crime scene. Tyler replied instantly when I sent the pictures. "Tyler, that's low. You need to act." Me. "It's just a sofa." Tyler. "No, it's a message, and you can't ignore messages like that." I called a cleaning service. $200 for an emergency removal attempt, no guarantee. The woman on the phone said, "We'll try, but ink that deep is stubborn." I said, "So am I." By evening, the air inside my condo smelled like solvent and something metallic. I watched the cleaner scrub, her rag turning gray. The mark barely faded. "Who did this?" she asked without looking up. I said nothing. When she left, I sat in the silence, the sofa arm wet and ruined. I opened my laptop and booked an appointment with a lawyer, the same one who'd handled my purchase deed. His office the next morning was all polished wood and slow clocks. He listened while I laid everything out. The rent notice, the Instagram post, the threat, the sofa. When I showed him the photos, his brows pinched. "This isn't just family drama," he said. "It's harassment, possibly intimidation." He drafted a formal letter, the kind with a heading that means business. Notice of adjusted lease terms and intent to evict if unpaid. Legal but human enough not to sound like revenge. "Send it certified," he advised. "And Maren, keep everything digital backed up. Texts, screenshots, photos. Don't delete anything." I nodded. "I already have a folder, labeled Keep." He smiled faintly. "Good. Keep keeping." That night, Tyler came over with takeout and sat beside me on the still damp sofa. "You okay?" he asked. I wanted to say yes. Instead, I thought standing up for myself would feel cleaner than this. But it's messy. Everything's sticky. He nodded. "You're changing the pattern. They'll fight it. That's what people do when the free ride ends." I leaned into him, feeling the ache settle under my ribs. They used to tell me I was too soft. "Soft doesn't mean weak," he said. "It means you feel the hit before you swing back." We sat there in quiet agreement. The city hummed outside, headlights streaking across the blinds. Somewhere below us, life kept moving, indifferent. The next day, my lawyer's letter went out. I kept a copy in the folder, another backup on my drive, another in the cloud. That evening, I walked past the building's security desk. The doorman, a man named Lenny, who'd known my parents by name for years, looked uneasy. "Hey, Maren," he said. "Weird thing. Someone's been coming by late, after midnight." My stomach tightened. "You have footage?" He nodded toward the monitor. Grainy grayscale video. A figure in a delivery jacket and baseball cap standing by the elevator outside my unit, 12:43 a.m. He never looked up, but even in low resolution, the outline was unmistakable. Brandon's build. Brandon's posture. "Do you want me to report it?" Lenny asked. I stared at the still frame. The cap pulled low, the slouched shoulders, the kind of body language that said, "This isn't over." "Not yet," I said. "Just keep the file safe." He nodded. "Got it." When I got home, I added one more thing to my folder, a printed screenshot of Brandon under the elevator camera. The label on the spine was fading from where my thumb kept tracing it. Keep. It wasn't just a word anymore, it was a promise, to myself, to the truth, to whatever came next. And something told me this wasn't the end of their retaliation. The week bled into another. Deadlines blurred. Clients emailed. I worked, ate, slept in fragments. Every morning I checked the condo's payment portal out of habit. Nothing. Then came day 20. A neighbor in the building called me that afternoon. Hey, Maren, just so you know, there's been some noise coming from your unit, shouting, maybe you should check. I thanked her and hung up before my pulse could catch up. By the time I got there, the shouting was gone, but something colder lingered. The hallway light flickered once, the one I'd replaced myself, and the door to my condo sat slightly ajar. My heart sprinted. Inside, everything looked intact until I reached the hallway mirror. The glass was spider-webbed, a single word scratched across the center in frantic letters, greedy. For a second, my reflection fractured into a dozen pieces, 12 versions of me staring back, each one smaller, more tired. I took photos, always photos, angles, close-ups, a video this time, narrating the date aloud so no one could say it was doctored. Then I noticed the lock. The deadbolt was untouched. The entry keyhole was clean, no signs of forced entry. Whoever did this had a key. Mom's necklace flashed in my mind. That old brass house key she'd been turning in her fingers during our last meeting. The one from my childhood home. The one that, according to my lawyer, should have been replaced when I bought the condo, but I'd never thought to. I called Tyler. He arrived 20 minutes later, face taut. You should call the cops, he said. I want to, but I gestured around, the chaos still humming. It's my family. It'll turn into a circus. He stepped closer, voice quiet but certain. They're already treating it like one. I didn't call 911. I called my lawyer. He told me to photograph, to save the timestamps, to prepare the eviction. This is textbook bad faith, he said. They've crossed every line. But even as he said it, I kept seeing Mom's hands, wrinkled, pale, twisting the key like worry beads. Would she have done this, or handed it over to someone who would? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in my apartment felt amplified. A neighbor's door, the hum of the fridge, my own breath ricocheting off the dark. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with another notification, an email from the HOA. Unreported noise complaints at Unit 4B, your tenants. Attached was a note from the security system. Someone had used a manual key entry at 11:57 p.m. I stared at the screen. My building used digital fobs. Only 2 physical keys existed, mine and one issued years ago to my parents. I'd never replaced it. I called Lenny, the doorman, half whispering. Could you check last night's feed? He hesitated. You sure you want to see this? Yes. A few seconds of grainy footage. The elevator doors opened. A woman stepped out, coat drawn tight, hair unmistakably blonde under the dim light. Mom. She looked up once, as if scanning for cameras, then knocked softly. Brandon appeared behind her, holding a trash bag. They entered together. The camera timestamp, 11:57. Lenny sighed. She still has that old key, huh? I nodded, throat tight. Not for long. The next morning, I met my lawyer again, dropping the USB footage onto his desk like evidence in a trial. Send the final notice, I said. Eviction in 30 days. Certified mail. He looked at me for a long moment. Maren, once you do this, there's no going back. There hasn't been a back for years, I said. He nodded. Then let's make it official. That evening, the letter went out. I watched the email copy land in my inbox. Black text, legal headers, unemotional language. It was the opposite of how I felt. Drained, furious, resolute. The next days came with silence. Too much of it. No texts, no calls, no posts. The quiet stretched until it felt like tension before a storm. Then, on day 29 at 7:42 a.m., my phone dinged. Nicole, we can't pay the new rate. We'll move out by Friday. Don't bother coming here. No apology, no acknowledgement of the years I'd carried them. Just a cold fact wrapped in disdain. Relief flickered, quickly smothered by suspicion. I drove to the building that afternoon anyway, telling myself I just wanted to check for damages. The hallway was half empty, boxes stacked by the door. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and defeat. A trash bag leaned against the wall. Inside it, shards of my mirror, and near the bottom, a small pink heart sticker. Chloe's. I crouched staring at it until my eyes stung. That little sticker, innocent and out of place, hit harder than the vandalism. She'd been here. She'd seen the fight, maybe heard the shouting, maybe watched her mother etch hatred into glass she wasn't tall enough to reach. I picked the heart out with 2 fingers and slipped it into my coat pocket. When I turned to leave, a voice stopped me. "Ms. Ivers?" Lenny called from down the hall. He held a printout from another security feed. "Thought you might want this. It's the elevator cam from the same night." In the grainy still, Brandon's cap had shifted just enough to show his jawline. Nicole's tote hung from his shoulder. Both were unmistakable. "Thanks, Lenny," I said, my voice a thin thread. He nodded. "You're doing the right thing. Some people only learn when the locks change." I smiled faintly at that. Locks. Keys. Maybe this was the only language my family understood. That night, back home, I added the printout to the folder. The keep spine was starting to fray from my handling. I ran my thumb along it, feeling the raised ink of the word. "Keep," I whispered. "Keep proof. Keep peace. Keep going." Outside my window, the city glowed, indifferent, alive, honest. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was standing on borrowed ground. Friday would come soon, and when it did, I'd make sure that for once, the door would close on my terms. Friday came like a deadline you can feel in your bones. Cold rain streaked across the windshield as I parked in front of the condo one last time. The street was cluttered with cardboard boxes and soggy tape. I sat there for a minute, both hands on the steering wheel, watching my family's belongings stacked on the curb like the aftermath of a sale no one wanted to attend. Tyler had offered to come, but I'd told him I needed to do this myself. Some endings you have to walk through alone. Inside, the air was stale. The silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like a house after a storm. Furniture I'd chosen with care sat dented and dusty. The cream sofa still bore the faint black scar. I'd meant to replace it before new tenants came, but now it felt like evidence, like a bruise that told the story better than any photograph could. Then I saw the hallway. The shattered mirror was gone, but the wall behind it had faint scuff marks and a faint outline of where the word greedy had been scratched. Whoever took the shards hadn't bothered to clean. I walked room by room, my shoes tapping against the hardwood. In the kitchen, the spice rack was empty. The light over the sink flickered again, and on the counter, under a chipped mug, was an envelope. My name, Aunt Maren, written in a child's uneven letters. My throat closed. Inside was a folded note drawn with purple crayon, a stick figure, family holding hands, under a crooked sun. "I'm sorry," it said in wobbling letters. "Love, Chloe." I sat down right there on the counter stool and let the quiet fill the space. My family had left chaos in every corner, but Chloe had left grace. When I finally stood, I tucked her drawing into my coat pocket, same one where the pink heart sticker still lived. I told myself I'd find a way to stay in her life someday, separate from the damage her parents left behind. But not yet. For now, I had work to do. By afternoon, the condo was a war zone of repairs. The broken mirror cost $300 to replace. The cleaning crew quoted $200 more to get the ink out of the couch, but the stain was permanent. I ordered a hauler to remove it. Every expense went into a spreadsheet my lawyer had suggested. Damage claim, potential. But even as I typed, I knew I didn't want to pursue it. Some debts aren't worth collecting if they cost your peace. When the space was finally clean, I opened all the windows. The city air swept through, cold and cleansing. It didn't smell like betrayal anymore. It smelled like paint, paper, and new beginnings. That night, I emailed my real estate agent, a sharp woman named Jo, who'd helped me buy the condo. "Listed for $2,800, I wrote, "ready for new tenants immediately." She replied within an hour. "Perfect price for the area. We'll have applicants by tomorrow." She was right. By Sunday, I was sitting across from a young couple, a doctor named Layla and her husband, Adrian, who toured the condo with careful awe. They admired the light, the space, the layout I'd once designed for family dinners that never happened. "We love it," Layla said. "It feels cared for." I smiled at that. "It was," I said. "It still is." They signed in the lease 2 days later. No haggling, no hesitation. Full market rate, first and last month, up front. I replaced the keys with a new set, sleek silver ones that hadn't yet chosen a side, and handed them over. "Welcome home," I said. That night, I stood in the empty hallway one last time before they moved in. The new mirror gleamed cleanly. The floors smelled of lemon oil and possibility. I looked at my reflection, One version now, not 12, and whispered, "You did it." Back at my apartment, Tyler was waiting with takeout and a grin. "So?" "Leased, at full value." He raised his glass, to boundaries and better tenants. I laughed. The sound came easily for the first time in months. Later, as we cleaned up, he asked gently, "Are you going to file the damage claim?" I shook my head. "No, it's not about the money anymore." He smiled, understanding without words. We talked about our wedding plans after that. Small, simple, Fairmount Park, maybe. Close friends, good food, no drama. The idea felt light. But as I packed away the leftover noodles, my phone buzzed. A text from my cousin Jenna. "FYI, Dad and Nicole are furious. They're saying you humiliated them. They might show up at your wedding to talk things out." I didn't answer right away. I scrolled through old texts, old photos, the years I'd spent trying to keep everyone happy. Then I looked at Chloe's drawing, still pinned under a magnet on my fridge. "I won't let them ruin what comes next," I said quietly. Tyler looked up from his laptop. "Then we plan for peace and prepare for noise." He wasn't wrong. A day later, Lenny texted me a photo, a clearer still from the elevator feed. Brandon, mid-stride, head turned just enough to show his face. Nicole beside him, tote on her arm. Timestamp, the same night the mirror broke. "Figured you'd want it for your records," Lenny wrote. I stared at it for a long time before replying. "Thank you, please keep a copy safe." The folder labeled "Keep" was growing thick now. Screenshots, letters, receipts, evidence, and one bright drawing in purple crayon. Proof of what was taken and what was worth saving. As I slid the new photo into it, I realized I didn't feel angry anymore. Just done. I wasn't their safety net. I wasn't their scapegoat. I wasn't the quiet kid sketching in her room, waiting for applause that would never come. I was the landlord, the designer, the woman who finally stopped apologizing for building her own house and locking the door behind her. And next month, when the new tenants moved in, the space would breathe differently. It would finally belong to someone who saw its worth, just like I was starting to see mine. The leaves turned early that year, crisp gold against the gray bones of Philadelphia. I remember standing outside the glass doors of Fairmount Park's conservatory, smoothing the hem of my dress with shaking hands. The air smelled like rain and new beginnings. Our wedding was small, 40 guests, give or take. No ballroom, no dramatic seating chart, just a canopy of string lights, a handful of close friends, and Tyler, waiting at the end of the aisle with a smile that steadied the whole world. Sarah, my maid of honor, squeezed my hand before the music started. "You sure you don't want to invite them?" she whispered. "They had their chance," I said softly. I'd sent no invitations to my parents, to Nicole, to Brandon. The silence after the eviction had stretched into months. The only sound from their side came through cousins, the occasional rumor that they were still struggling, living with my aunt in a cramped row house on the edge of the city. I didn't gloat. I didn't reach out. Some distance needs to stay distance. But Chloe stayed in my thoughts. Every week when I balanced invoices or drafted new client contracts, I'd glance at her crayon drawing, still pinned above my desk, still bright. Sometimes I wondered if she missed me, if she'd ever understand that none of this was her fault. The string quartet started to play. I took a breath and stepped forward. Tyler's eyes found mine, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to earn the air I was breathing. When we reached each other, he whispered, "You made it." "I did," I said, smiling. "We did." The ceremony was short, but the vows were ours. Honest, imperfect, grounded. "You are my calm," Tyler said. My reminder that soft doesn't mean breakable. I laughed through tears. "And you," I said, "are proof that love can be steady without being dull." We exchanged rings. The applause came gentle and genuine. The reception blurred into a mosaic of laughter and candlelight. Sarah's toast made everyone cry, then laugh again. My friend Joe, the real estate agent, joked about how she'd never seen a client weaponize spreadsheets so elegantly. Even my lawyer showed up with a bottle of wine and a note. "Congratulations on the cleanest eviction in Philadelphia history." It was almost perfect until I saw movement at the gate. Nicole. She stood outside the park fence, rain catching in her hair, eyes rimmed red. Dad was beside her, shoulders stooped. Behind them, a few distant cousins hovered, pretending they weren't watching. Tyler noticed before I could speak. "Do you want me to handle it?" I shook my head. "No, this one's mine." I stepped away from the table, the music dimming behind me. The gravel crunched under my shoes as I crossed the path. Nicole's gaze flickered between defiance and something like shame. Dad looked like a man still searching for a script. I just wanted to talk, Nicole said, her voice tight. I folded my arms. Now's not the time. Dad exhaled through his nose. You embarrassed this family. I saved myself from it, I said. Nicole's jaw trembled. You didn't have to. Yes, I interrupted quietly. I did. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Tara, yes, that Tara, appeared beside me. She'd been invited as a guest. She's telling the truth, Tara said evenly. I saw the messages, the screenshots. You bragged about using her. Nicole's face went pale. Dad's eyes darted away. This isn't a fight, I said, voice steady now. It's a boundary. I'm not filing damages. I'm not calling anyone. But if you contact me or show up again, you'll hear from my lawyer. Leave Chloe out of it. Nicole blinked fast, the tears coming, then swallowed them down. We just wanted to explain. Don't, I said gently. Sometimes silence is the explanation. Dad opened his mouth, then closed it again. When they finally turned to leave, I caught sight of something small and shining in his hand. Mom's necklace, the brass key still looped through it. They disappeared into the rain. I stood there for a while, breathing in the quiet they left behind. Back inside, the music picked up again. Tyler met me halfway. Everything okay? Yes, I said. Finally. Later, after the last dance, I found a voicemail waiting on my phone. It was from Mom. Her voice was fragile, careful. Maren, I know you won't pick up, but I wanted to say, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let it go so far. When you're ready, I'll return the old key. I listened to it twice, then I saved it. A week later, Tyler and I moved into a new apartment, a space we chose together. My old condo was already home to Layla and Adrian, who sent cheerful texts about the light and the neighborhood. The rent arrived on time, every time. One afternoon, I unlocked my office drawer and took out the folder. The label, Keep, had faded at the edges. I opened it. Inside, photos, receipts, the eviction letter, the mirror evidence, and Chloe's purple drawing. I set everything except the drawing in a small box and sealed it shut. The drawing I framed. It hangs above my desk now, beside a tiny envelope with a return address written in familiar, uneven letters. Inside is a short note. Dear Aunt Maren, thank you for the bear you sent me. I miss you. Mom says maybe we can visit someday when things are better. Love, Chloe. I smiled when I read it. Not because everything was fixed, but because healing had started somewhere small. I slipped the note beside the drawing, stepped back, and locked the drawer. The key clicked, a sound that once meant control, but now meant closure. Outside, the city hummed. Somewhere between old hurts and new beginnings, I'd learned that boundaries could coexist with mercy, that letting go didn't mean shutting every door. Soft doesn't mean breakable. Sometimes it just means you keep what's worth keeping.